Namaste. Namaste. Good afternoon, Christina. First one on the scroll today. First one for a roll call today. Good morning, Patrick. It is good morning there for you. Yes, it is. As we turn to afternoon on the East Coast. Kevin, hello, my love. This has become such a strong part of my heart connection, this opportunity to connect with so many loved ones near and far, right? So many that have graced this beautiful space and so many that haven't, right? This collective that is ever expanding, ever expanding, right? As our hearts are, right? Crisis, conflict, they show up at first as big problems, right? At first we see the blockade, of course. But my goodness, these are the gifts that bring us closer together as humans, right? Our hearts are growing more connected. And that can never be a bad thing. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank y'all for showing up to sit for yourselves, but also showing up to sit for us, right? Good morning, good afternoon, Judith, Bill. All right, my loves, let us tune in together. In tuning in, sometimes immediately feels beautiful, and sometimes this can be very challenging, right? Depending on, how much frequency is orbiting around you or within you at any given moment. But that's one of the very reasons why we do it together. We're helping each other on those days where you feel most strayed, where your nerve system feels most frayed, right? We got you. Breathe in. Namaste. I want to begin by just checking in with everyone and a beautiful, blessed moment of gratitude, right? It's always beneficial to start your day or your practice or any moment in your existence with a moment of gratitude. Here in Western New York, in Buffalo on the East Coast of the U.S., and we had two beautiful shows of respect, beautiful, peaceful protests that occurred Saturday and Sunday, and a lot of you, I know, Julia and Christina, and so many of you, right, showed up for that, and the photos that were shared of just the sea, of people, the sea of people, right? Compassionate beings walking together, standing together, kneeling together. This beautiful gesture of humanity. Children coming together, right? Families. So, in deep gratitude, right, for all of those peaceful walks that are happening all over the country. So as I was doing my sadhana, my daily practice, I want to share with you that an image of my gram came up. My dad's mom, and she used to bake bread, and this kind of image of her baking the bread, making the bread, kind of came through as I was doing some of my practice today. And so I guess I just feel called to sharing a little bit about her and perhaps why it came through. So we lived upstairs from her. I spent a lot of time downstairs in her home, and particularly in her kitchen. And from what I can remember, she made bread every week. Like, it was just this thing that she always did. I don't know if it really was every week, but that's how it's kind of set in my brain. I'm pretty sure it was, because we always had her bread. I don't recall ever having anybody else's bread. And this was quite a process. And I remember, just being able to like sit just past the table, or kind of like stand with my head just peeking over the table, just watching her go through this process. And she wasn't a very large woman. She was about my size. And what the image that is sticking with me the most, kind of ingrained in the brain, is the kneading of the dough. This process of kneading the dough. And as it popped into my mind today, a couple of things occurred. One is it's a fairly arduous process. It's pretty labor intensive, and it takes a lot of time, right? The whole process from start to finish, and the whole yeast rising thing, and then the kneading thing, and then the letting it set thing, and all the process that goes involved, the many stages, if you will. And the most like I said, the most visual impact that stays with me is the kneading of the dough. And I've talked about this here at the studio with some of the students on the mat practice, but I have to say that I really do think that this practice, whether it's a practice of consciousness, of mindfulness, if it involves physical yoga or not, it doesn't really matter. But, those of us that are continuing to tune in, those of us that are continuing to go out there and walk the good fight, we're all waking up, right? Our consciousness is rising, just like dough, right? Our consciousness is rising. And to me, it's kind of like kneading dough. This very constant, very steady, very deliberate, active, not aggressive, just active, right? It's very important that we understand the difference between those two words. To be active is not always the same as being aggressive, thank goodness, right? So this very active, this very constant, this very committed routine, regiment of kneading the dough. And for me, the asana practice, the physical practice, is kind of like kneading out one's personal kinks, right? And for me, the meditative experience, raising of consciousness experience, is kneading out some of the nonsense in the mind, It's very important that we continue to check in with ourselves, especially during these tragic times, these heavier times, these more charged times, to make sure that we are not putting more layers on. Right? It's so easy to do that, right? Armor, right? Especially when things went funky over these past weeks, over the country, right? Armor, right? It doesn't help us, right? So this kneading, if you will, the kneading of the dough of the mind, the kneading the dough of the heart, the kneading the dough of the gut, is all these beautiful attempts that we take very personally, right? That we attend to the self very individually in such a way that we're kneading out some of our personal kinks, some of our lodgings, some of the stuff that gets held and trapped, some of the stuff that armors us up, right? We're softening the thicker layers in such a way that we can get to the core gooey center, that beautiful doughy ball, right? The heart or the mind, if you will, that is oh so pliable, right? Dough is pliable, right? So there's many beautiful metaphors here. Let me come back, hang on a second. It's really important that we check in and make sure that we're doing our own personal kneading, right? To maintain a sense of pliability. Because it's really easy to get stuck in the armor, right? It's really easy to just keep building up the lodgings in such a way that we don't even know who we are anymore, right? So as we do this, as we do the kneading of the mind, as we do the kneading of the body, the kneading of the heart, the working through, right? We're then able to walk the path of service, to walk the path with fellow man, with more efficiency, more clarity, more direction, more purpose, right? Once we, basically the point that I'm getting to is we gotta work on our own shit before we can work on helping the shit of others, right? Because if we just go for the cause but haven't done that inner work of kneading out our own kinks and knots and stuff in the mind and in the heart, and then we're just presenting ourselves to society, you know, we're just this knotted up mass that is not really going to be of service to anyone. And you know, how wonderful, going back to these very, very peaceful protests, like what a wonderful testament to our community particularly, that for 2 days straight, massive amounts of people, right? We're not even supposed to be together right now, right? Due to quarantine, right? Massive amounts of people came together, right? And walked the good walk, right? Took steps for the good fight, right? Had a voice in such a way that it was less reactive and more, clearly directed. So, it seems to me that more and more and more of us are waking up, and more of us are attending to our own stuff, right? So, every once in a while, our arms go up in the air and go, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do? How can I serve, right? It's got to start with you. You got to do your own internal work. And then, clarity comes the day that you walk the march, the day that you put the sign out, whatever it is, right? We open up Shakti, we open up creative energy in such a way that we're flowing with greater states of consciousness. So when we're purer inside, when we're clearer inside, it becomes easier. It just becomes easier, right? To serve others, right? So the kneading, the process of working in to your own stuff very, very gradually, right? And the practice of baking bread is not one of perfection, right? It's not someone sitting there taking stuff out, like, I don't like this about myself, so that can go away, right? That's not the process of working through your shit, right? That's just being selective and picky, right? Process of working through your shit is getting on into it, right? Get into it, get with it. And, meditation, if you will, or mindfulness practice, right? These words that everyone's hearing now and kind of wants to take part in. Like, for me, that experience, that practice is simply tolerance. Just being able to tolerate your thoughts and notice where the blockades are and soften in such a way that there's this little kneading of the mind. Like, you're working through it, so we become less hostile, right? So we become more heartful, right? We don't need a mat for that, right? We don't need a formal class for that. We have those. You're welcome to join. but my goodness, I mean, I just feel like I feel like the human race is really striding forward. Of course, there's always going to be backwards in any movement. But I feel like more people are catching on, to the possibility of doing their own work, right? The kneading of the mind, the kneading of the soul, the kneading of the heart, the kneading of the gut, right? And it takes time, right? It's not easy. You gotta roll up your sleeves and get in there. Every single day, ask yourself, how am I doing? Where is my mind right now? Is my skin tight? Is my jaw clenched, right? And only you can work through that stuff, right? Because that's just the reaction, right? Get in, get in, get in, get in. So that this quarantine time was not a time wasted, right? And these protests certainly have not been time wasted, right? So we've all got work to do. We will always have work to do, right? You just kind of step up, acknowledge it's going to take some time, but my goodness, at least we're doing it, right? We're doing it. So here we go. Breathe in through your nose. Out through your mouth. Again. One more. Feel free to move around. Let a little something loose. You know, we're all held so tight, right? Wound so tight. Shake something loose. Right? Only you can do that. And when you feel ready, if you care to go further, we drop into our seats. So there's a relinquish, a disarming, if you will, an unclenching, in this case of the lower self where the hips and thighs are. You might catch that moment where you touch down, when you release the hold, how the lower self drops into its seat of purpose. And we mustn't ever fool the self and think that there's never anything going to be to work on, right? We're going to get in there, things are going to be really crazy and chaotic, or just thick and muddy, right? So this kind of kneading of the dough of the mind and kneading of the dough of the heart, it's very consistent, very passive, right? What do you have to work through today, right, to get in? And you just have to stay with it. You have to stay with yourself. And we're here to support you do that. Start to open up the waist and the midsection of the body. See if you can soften at your diaphragm, at your gut. Maybe you can release some of that hold. You know, a lot of us have probably been feeling like we've been punched in the gut lately, right? And see if you can broaden across the collar. Just make a little bit more space across the lungs and chest. And notice that we have breath. And maybe today's the day that we notice that the breath is the very tool that does the kneading for us. It works through. It permeates. So we just try to soften in such a way that the breath comes through the mind and the thoughts that want so desperately to hold, right? Or the feelings that are working so hard to adhere. Right? We just want the breath to to move through them in such a way that the breath is helping us work with that stuff, making it pliable. Soften all the muscles in your face as best you can. And crawling inside the body through your soft skin as best you can. Starting to enter those breath waves. Watching your awareness move the breath in such a way that it's touching upon your tender and your tough. And as it touches upon your tender and your tough, it's kind of kneading its way around and in, making each thought and each sensation and each feeling a little softer, a little more pliable, so that you can rise your state of consciousness through it. Elongate through the spinal column. Soften at the back of the chest. Soften at the back of the heart. Observing this breath turning on your awareness as it moves through your spine, moves through your innards, moves through your mind. Let your breath move through your mind. Softening through the temples and forehead and the brow. And then if you care to build the breath, we'll slowly proceed into our 5-count exercise to strengthen our lungs. As always, if 5 is just not available today, just let it be okay. Do the best you can. Empty the breath from the underbelly. Breathe in. Retain. Breathe out. Retain. Breathe in. Retain. Breathe out. Breathe in. Retain. Breathe out. Retain. Breathe in. Retain. Breathe out. Retain. Let the breath go. Let the lock of the belly release. Move the body freely. Allowing the this breath to perhaps go to new spots, creating more pliability, kneading the mind and the heart and the gut with this flow of the breath as it permeates through the whole inner being. Notice any spaciousness, any effervescence, any rise, any expansion. And this is how we can potentially walk this earth to be of service, right? And first we have to open the vehicle and the vessel of the self in such a way that we are moving from place of consciousness and awareness. And bringing the hands to the center of the heart. And breathe in. Namaste. So it's important we keep checking in with ourselves. How are we doing, right? How are we doing right now? And essentially it is only us that can address. And we address in a very compassionate, a very passive, yet very consistent, right? Just like kneading dough. That time that it takes to dig those knuckles in, right? Working out the kinks, making the dough pliable so that it can rise, right? This process, right? That involves time and patience, attention, attentiveness, right? And as we do that work for and of the self, and then we can walk this world, right, with more consciousness that we can use for greater states of service. We're all capable of service. We just have to check in with ourselves first. So I'll be leading us through the kneading of the physical form in a few moments. I encourage you to join us, especially if you haven't. This certainly is not for the Shakti folk. This is for all folk, and all folk are Shakti folk, because Shakti just simply means creative energy. Right? We are all creative beings because we've all been created, right? Birthright. But of course, if you're choosing not to do a physical mat yoga practice, I just invite you to use this centering that we've experienced together as the springboard into your day for a very, conscious walk, a walk where you're aware and tuned in with nature, whatever else suits and serves you. This just springboards your day. Okay. I want to thank everyone once again for the beautiful passivity and activism, right? That beautiful balance, passivity and activism that came across our city and hopefully continues to go across many others. I also want to thank everyone for contributions that have been coming in. This is my gig. This is my only gig. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the support to keep me going, to keep food on my table, keep this space open during this very, very interesting time. Let's seal it up. Let's send it out because we can. Because we can. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with an easy heart. Namaste.